Would you ever gain 40% of your current weight on purpose in 4 months to understand what it's like to be fat and then try to lose it all back? Welcome to Fit to Fat to Fit. Fit to Fat to Fit is a 2016 reality TV show created by Drew Manning, who in 2011 gained 60 pounds and lost it all to try and help his brother lose weight. He then wrote a book about it in 2012. The concept may be original to personal trainer Paul P.J. James, who in 2009 did the exact same thing and released a documentary called Fat and Back, released in 2012 as well. In Fit to Fat to Fit, the premise of the show is to do the exact same thing with trainers that have never been overweight before and to then lose the weight together with overweight participants. In season 2, they changed the format to have trainers and participants who are close to each other, like husband and wife, friends, or siblings. The show got some backlash from the onset because people considered the show to be controversial, health-ruining, and even cruel for the trainers. I really liked watching this show the first time around from a social experiment point of view, but it has its flaws, so let's look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what we can learn from it. So disclaimer, I will not be showing any weight loss reviews, but there will be some minor spoilers throughout the video, so keep that in mind. And also, obviously, this video will be touching on some topics around dieting and disordered eating behavior, so if that's triggering for you in any way, I am okay with you clicking off if that feels safer for you. So starting with the structure of the episodes, in season 1, the episodes all follow a similar structure. After the intro, we meet the trainer of the episode in week 1 when they're at their peak health and fitness state. And I know there's some editing involved in these shows to try and make it more dramatic, more controversial, to keep the viewer's attention, but I feel like not all, but many of the trainers in this show, either they went out to try and hunt the most unlikable ones, or they gave them a script.
When I see an overweight person or someone obese, I immediately think lazy.
Fat people, I don't give them too much sympathy.
Seeing an overweight person in a tank top or an overweight person with their legs out, that's what disgusts me about fat people. I think you should put on a sweatshirt. I think you should knock out some push-ups and come back next summer looking right.
No ma'am. No ma'am.
I understand that this may be to create some impact on the before and after of the trainers with this experiment, but if someone never hired a personal trainer before and watches this, I feel like this selectively gives a very bad image of personal trainers and coaches in general. And believe me, not all trainers and coaches are like this. So after we see the trainers show off some of their very impressive gym flexes, they send out the trainer to meet the overweight participant. So we get to know the overweight participant, their living situation, why they want to lose weight, and usually they're pretty honest about their eating habits and why they want to change. Usually the meeting goes well, the trainers are usually more sympathetic while in person with the participants, fortunately, and then they pull out the reverse cards and announce that they will be gaining
a percentage
of their current weight in 4 months to then lose the weight together with the participant. Usually the reactions are a mix of shock and disbelief that the trainers will even be able to pull this off. Then the journey of the fitness trainer to gain weight begins in week 1. Usually there's an inaugural outing where they go out with their friends to have an atrociously large meal. I understand that this is for a dramatic effect on the show, but the fact that most of the trainers finish this meal on the verge of being sick doesn't feel quite right. People like me will always be telling you that losing weight too fast is not healthy. Well, the reverse is also true. These trainers are going all out, with some of them even ingesting more than 7,000 calories a day and stopping all exercise. In a more moderate energy intake increase over a longer time period, your body would be able to convert some of that additional energy intake into muscle mass. But in such a short time frame and such a high increase in energy intake, all your body can do is almost convert all that extra energy directly into fats. Then come a few realizations from a physiological, psychological, and even interpersonal standpoint. As the trainers literally force feed themselves, they have to deal with a lot of changes in their lives as they go through this challenge. Obviously, the trainers first are training their stomachs to enlarge and accommodate a volume of food that was previously not the norm for them. And some of them even struggle to gain the weight, obviously because they're doing it too quickly and their body's natural mechanism towards homeostasis is fighting against them.
I lost weight last week. I ate about 3,500 calories every day. And I've been so sick.
This is also one of the criticisms that people made to this show, because the trainers are really only going through this process of becoming fat because of the challenge. And they're not really going through the same struggles that obese people face when they are obese. Also, when they get to their goal weight, they're only at their fattest for about a week and then begin the weight loss immediately after. And so many trainers are seen hating almost every minute of the process and talking very badly of the foods that they're eating. The most impactful example is trainer Felicia in season 2, who starts to spiral into a depression and gags or vomits every time she tries to eat. She then reveals that she used to be a fitness model and used to struggle with food and her weight back then.
Anyone who is consumed by their food each and every day is not living a joyful life. Now, all of those past feelings are coming back.
This is important to show that just because you are fit doesn't mean that you are healthy or that you have a healthy relationship with food. The competitive fitness and sports industry is plagued with eating disorders and disordered eating behavior, and I feel like we just brush past that a little bit because they look good physically. But that's a conversation for another day. But it's also in this part of the episode that it becomes clear that being fit to the extreme that these trainers are fit is also not the norm and not intuitive or casual in the slightest.
I have a very small menu. I like to stay with the same things all the time. That keeps me from overeating. It keeps the food rather bland and it becomes very efficient.
I like to look at my nutrition like it's a petri dish. And that way I'm very accountable for everything in there and it's easier to track.
Nothing goes in my mouth that hasn't been measured.
Some of these trainers begin this challenge with such a strict diet and exercise regimen that it's only by starting this challenge that they actually realize that they can enjoy such a simple thing as going out for drinks with their friends.
For the first time, I'm the one who instigates the party. Before, I would get nervous about being social. The payoff of being social, like, had to weigh that.
I just had so many rules.
On another note, it's actually satisfying to see them admit in this phase that fast foods are not only tasty to eat, cheaper, and can be quite addictive.
Fast food's growing on me. It really started off disgusting. The fact that it's pretty cheap and I can stop off and get it anytime just on a whim. I think I'm gonna miss that almost more than it tastes. Maybe.
Which, let's admit it, it's part of the reason why the system contributes to people becoming obese. For the trainers, however, some of them start developing some serious health complications, with even one of the trainers quitting in season 2 due to this.
So your heart muscle is thick?
What does that mean? Like my heart is thick?
Your heart is thick. What it means is that the same way that your biceps are big, right? Because you've been working out. Your heart's been working out. So, you know.
Just to find all that out, like I can't do it no more. This is like my health, my life.
From a psychological standpoint, some of the trainers become irritable, cranky, frustrated, depressed, lethargic. And it's interesting that there's also a recent field of study called nutritional psychiatry, which studies the effect that food and supplements may have in treating mental health disorders. For example, as per a 2017 study, it is known that depression and obesity have a bidirectional relationship, which means that developing one increases the risk of developing the other. From an interpersonal point of view, many of the trainers have either relationships with a partner or a family, and their relationships change with the course of the challenge, sometimes for better.
Sex life is great, actually. He's like, this is great. You got like an instant boob job. You got like ass implants.
She's voluptuous. She's beautiful.
I had to schedule in him before, and now I'm like, let's go.
But many times for worse.
I broke up with Mackenzie.
How it's affected my relationship with my wife for years and years and years, right? We've been on the same page. And now it's, I bring home my cheeseburger and she's eating her salad and we don't have anything to talk about. A lot of people jumped in on this one saying that if your relationship can fall apart because you eat different meals, then it wasn't probably a very solid relationship to begin with. But I'm going to play the devil's advocate for a second and say that probably this wasn't just about the meals, obviously. It was probably due to the psychological effect of the diet on the trainers and also their sudden lifestyle change. If your partner becomes depressed or lethargic and they can play with the kids, for example, because they can't do any physical activity, and you have to do all of that by yourself, whereas before maybe you used to share those moments together, I can see how that can kind of strain your relationship a little bit. Anyway, after 4 months, they have their weigh-in after gaining all the weight, and they go out and meet the participants to show their new fat self. The reactions are usually pretty entertaining.
I know, I got boobs. Oh, God.
My cheeks have gotten huge, man. They're still hard. They're hard, right?
One of the biggest criticisms to this show that I've seen is people saying that the trainer will never be able to understand what it's like to be obese or to lose the weight as an obese person because they will never be losing the weight from a similar starting point. Which brings me to some of the reasons why these trainers will have it easier to lose the weight than their participants. Number one, they are starting out with a higher volume of muscle mass that they keep while they are gaining the weight. Because muscle mass is more metabolically active than fat, the trainers will be burning more calories at rest than if they didn't have all that muscle underneath the fat. Number two, they have knowledge and are comfortable around exercising and nutrition. But most importantly, number three, they enjoy exercising and eating healthy foods. They have intrinsic motivation.
After a good workout, your muscles are pumping, you look good, you feel good, you're literally glistening. It's an addictive feeling.
Number four, muscle memory allows them to bounce back to their previous state much faster than if they'd never trained before.
I thought this was about empathy, and she's just like flipping around and acting like it's no big deal and just intimidation.
I'm alive. Been craving this.
Number five, after 4 months, even with health complications, their bodies are still generally much more healthy than someone who's been overweight for years or decades. And number six, they have past experience. They've already seen themselves in peak health and fitness condition before. It's always easier to motivate people to achieve a goal when they know they've already accomplished it at least once before. Of course, watching this show, I don't think anyone is expecting for the participant to, at the end of the 4 months, looked as fit and ripped as the fitness trainers were in week 1. But it's also important to understand why they will not be both at the same level and why the trainers may not be able to fully comprehend everything about losing weight as an obese person, because the starting point just isn't the same, and especially when the trainers might be just aiming to lose 50 or 60 pounds, but the participant is aiming to lose 100. But that doesn't mean that it's always super easy for the trainers to lose the weight, and especially like in this show where you can see some of the trainers even struggling to let go of the lifestyle that they got accustomed to while gaining the weight.
I've only lost 13 pounds in the last 2 months, and I have a sneaking suspicion that has something to do with tequila.
Regardless, the weight loss journey begins. Usually this starts with an inaugural workout session where the trainer assesses the physical condition of the participant, and then the trainer performs the same exact workout as the participant did initially. This is usually my favorite part of the episodes because you get to see the trainers get the payback they deserve for putting their participants through hell.
Man! Halfway through the workout, I really wanted to quit. I'm a douche. I did that to you? Whoa, what a jerk.
Yeah, exercise hurts, and it probably hurts a lot more when you have 100 pounds of extra weight on you. And this is one of my criticisms to this part of the show, and usually it's across all weight loss shows, but it's to start the exercise regimen at this level of intensity. You can really hurt yourself if you're obese and you work out at this high intensity level while applying all that pressure and force into your joints and ligaments. This isn't shown, but ideally before exercising, participants should be put through a screening for comorbid diseases, musculoskeletal disorders, and cardiovascular disease risk factors. And initial training should actually emphasize frequency of training rather than intensity. So if for someone who is very obese, walking is the most they can do without risking hurting themselves, then walking 5 times a week is probably a good place to start. But also in this show, I understand that they only have 4 months to do this, but that's exactly the problem. It's too aggressive, and it can lead to the participant gaining all the weight back afterwards. It will also mean that they will need to go through a very strict nutritional plan because they now need to cram all the caloric deficit they need into 4 months, where maybe a year or more would be the ideal time frame.
First, bad news first. I don't like the corn.
What?
Pretty much everything else in here is going to be a no. This is your go section.
Oats, beans, and tea.
I'm going to tell you, if someone came to my house and told me that I need to clean out my whole pantry, I would show them politely the way to the door and kick their ass out. It is unrealistic to expect someone to never eat pasta again in their life. So if the diet requires you to cut out pasta completely, then when the diet is over, you go back to eating the pasta like you did before and you gain all the weight back. So why not instead teach people to keep eating pasta but eat a little bit less of it? Cut down on the portions so that they gain the habit of eating smaller portions and they're able to keep the weight off for longer. From a behavioral point of view, I would also like to shout out episode 10 from season 1, where instead of just one participant, we have a couple of participants. There is research on the influence of partners in health behavior change, and I think this episode just shows really well how, additionally to the trainer being a motivational factor, having a partner trying to accomplish the same goal increases that motivation and accountability. Anyway, season 2 is a buttload of drama between the husbands and wives and siblings and friends, just arguing and crying and screaming at each other.
This is 4. One more. That was 1. There you go. Now you know how heavy I feel.
So get up, and when I'm trying to show you something, maybe you will appreciate it.
After watching this, all I can advise you is, if you can help it, don't hire a trainer who is a friend or close to you. A trainer should never argue or scream with a client the same way that you wouldn't expect your boss to scream and yell at you. It needs to be a professional relationship. But if we focus just on season 1, I'd have to say that my favorite part of this show is definitely the bond and the relationship that we see the trainer and the participant build and grow together.
So we start like this. Adonis somebody doesn't know how to swim, so we're gonna reverse the roles a little today. I'll be helping him out.
We're more than just client/trainer.
We're a team now.
And then we reach week 16. The coaches first show off their regained physique, most of them almost as if they'd never gained the weight before. And then they share how the challenge helped them and how they are now able to understand their overweight clients much better. And then there's obviously a classic weight loss reveal party where the participants show their new appearance to their friends and family. Overall, this show isn't perfect, but I really liked watching it because it doesn't just focus on the calories in, calories out narrative. There's a lot of behavioral, psychological, emotional, interpersonal aspects to weight loss other than the physical. And I thought there was a lot to learn from watching the show through that lens, which hopefully I was able to add a little bit to through this video. Let me know in the comments if you've watched this show before and how do you feel about it? Did it offend you? Did it motivate you? Did you learn something new? Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye!